Hey guys, tonight we time travel somewhere you probably don't want to go. You're not storming a battlefield. You're not building an aqueduct. No, tonight you're taking a bath, or trying to. You're stepping into the steamy, slippery, half-naked chaos of a Roman bathhouse. And let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. Picture it. The year is 98 AD. You're in Rome. You smell bad, your tunic's crusty, and society expects you to be civilized. Which in this case means getting undressed in front of dozens of strangers and wandering through a maze of scolding rooms and questionable social rituals. Bathing is mandatory, but comfort, not so much. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from and what time is it for you? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You approach the Thermae, one of the giant public bathhouses scattered around the empire. This one's big. Columns out front, smoke curling from chimneys, and a whole lot of people already inside. Some are carrying towels, some are just wrapped in them. One guy is clearly just here to flirt. You trudge up the stone steps. They're slippery. Everything here seems slightly wet, even the walls. The marble is stained, the air smells like mildew, and there's a strange thudding sound coming from inside, like someone wrestling a sheep. But you're committed now. Right away the noise hits you. Not voices, shouting, laughing, slapping. Water gurgles and hisses in channels beneath the floor. Someone's shouting in Latin. Someone else responds by hurling a sandal. You pass a niche in the wall, where a pair of very bored-looking statues just kind of watch the chaos forever. The entrance smells like oil and old smoke, not the candle kind. Charcoal smoke mixed with burning cedar and wet hair. You're herded into the appetitorium or changing room. There are benches, hooks, a lot of body hair, a lot of staring. You try not to meet anyone's eye as you start undressing. You're already sweating. A small child darts past, shrieking, and throws a wet towel at your leg. No one reacts. A tall man walks by with a gold ring on his toe and nothing else. You glance down at your own awkward feet. You don't belong here, not yet. Here's your first reality check. Roman bathhouses weren't really about bathing. They were about everything. Hygiene, politics, gossip, relaxation, religion, exercise, and occasionally some light criminal activity. You're not here to quietly unwind. You're here to be Roman, and you're already failing. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were mostly social clubs or unofficial health clinics. But there's no debate about how public they were. Privacy, not a concept. Everyone sees everything, and they have opinions about it. You finally manage to undress and shove your clothes into a little cubby. You didn't bring a slave to watch them, so chances are high they'll get stolen. But you're trying to stay positive. You take your first step toward the bath chamber. The floor is made of ancient tile, mosaic images of dolphins, sea gods, and suspiciously grinning cupids. The tile is warm, too warm. You realize the floor is heated by a hypocaust system, fires roaring below, air circulating under the floor stones. Basically, the Romans invented underfloor heating, neat, until you realize your soles are beginning to sweat. You duck through a low archway into the next room. Steam hits your face like a wet sponge. The ceiling disappears into fog. Shapes move through the mist, shadows of men laughing, arguing, coughing. Somewhere, someone sings badly and confidently. And you just stand there, naked, confused, clammy. A dripping man brushes past you, muttering about his strigil, which you think is either a body scraper or a type of insult. You try to nod like you understand. You do not. The air is thick with heat and herbs, maybe rosemary or mint. It's hard to tell through the sweat already rolling down your back. Your lungs feel damp. Is that a thing? Your lungs feel damp. You spot a niche in the wall where someone left a wooden comb. It's warped and splintered, probably communal. You step back quickly. There's movement to your right. A bather leans back, stretches like a smug cat, and pours warm water over his head using a shallow bowl. He catches your eye and smiles. It is not a comforting smile. Just as you're about to melt into the stonework and vanish, a booming voice calls out something in Latin that might mean next, or might mean help. Either way, you shuffle forward. Your Roman bathhouse adventure has officially begun. You're soaked in sweat, completely overwhelmed, and already half dehydrated, and you haven't even hit the hot room yet. You haven't even adjusted to the air when it happens, the moment of truth. A bath attendant gestures at you and points. Not toward a towel, not toward a chair. No, he points at your skin, and then mimics slathering something on himself. You stand there uncertain, and then he appears, the oiler, a broad-shouldered man with forearms like loaves of bread and a face carved from regret. He carries a ceramic jug of olive oil and a metal object that looks halfway between a butter knife and a gardening tool. You mutter something about not needing help. He either doesn't understand or doesn't care. Oil is already being poured across your chest. It's warm, slippery, weirdly fragrant. You want to ask if this is the extra virgin kind, but your dignity is disintegrating by the second. Then comes the scraping. It starts gently, just a pass down the shoulder. Okay, not bad, but then it becomes thorough. The strigil scrapes oil, sweat, and whatever else you've accumulated in your sorry modern life right off your skin. You try to relax, but it feels like exfoliation crossed with a medieval punishment. The man mutters something about your back. You nod. He scrapes there too. You make a noise, somewhere between a hiccup and a prayer, and he takes that as encouragement, more scraping. Historians still argue whether this part of the bath process was strictly hygienic or just ritualized torture with a dash of skincare. Either way, your pores are gasping. It's not just you either. It's a team sport. One older gentleman critiques the technique being used on his neighbor. Someone drops their strigil and it clatters like a sword. A boy giggles and runs by, slick with oil, leaving a tragic trail behind him. You try to step out of the way and almost slip. Catching yourself on a pillar, you realize that every surface in this place is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Slippery tile, steam-blind corridors, and your bare feet with zero traction. You shuffle like a baby deer on ice. The greasing finally stops. You nod in gratitude, even though you feel like you've just gone through a weirdly specific car wash. Your skin glistens, your dignity not so much. Now what? You spot a doorway, arched, shadowy. A few men drift toward it, chatting, towels slung lazily over shoulders. Only everyone's dripping. No one notices you're new. That's good. You shuffle past, trying to look casual, trying to act like you've totally done this before. Meanwhile, you're mentally begging for just a bench. Maybe a quiet puddle to sit in. Anything, but first you need your tessera, right, the bath token. See, in Roman times you couldn't just wander in and out of a bathhouse like it was a park. You had to pay, not in coins, but with a little token, usually made of bronze or clay. It told the staff what kind of bath you paid for. Cold plunge, hot soak, massage with questionable oils, all coded on the tessera. Guess who forgot theirs? You. You, the oiled-up modern tourist in ancient Rome, now standing in front of a very large, very unimpressed attendant. He looks at you, says something sharp, points back toward the changing area. You try to explain, he doesn't care. Another man sidles up, hands over his tessera, and is instantly waved through. He gives you a pitying look. It stings. You try miming that you paid in the lobby. You didn't. You even attempt a bow. That might have been a mistake. The attendant crosses his arms. Behind him, the steam hisses like it's judging you too. Historians still argue whether bathhouse access was strictly enforced or if bribery played a role. You're strongly considering the latter. At last, the attendant sighs, waves you forward, and mutters something that's probably not a compliment. You scurry past, humiliated, slick, tokenless. The corridor narrows, the heat intensifies. The next room pulses with warmth and the sound of dripping water echoing off stone. You realize you're entering the tepidarium, the warm room. Kind of the Roman version of stretching before a run. Only the run is sweating profusely while trying not to pass out. You take a seat on a bench. It's damp, always damp. A man beside you mumbles about the weather and offers you a dried fig. You accept it's chewy, possibly older than you are. Another man nearby hums tunelessly while trimming his toenails with what might be a knife. The warmth seeps into your bones. You blink slowly. Your body tries to relax, but your brain whispers, this is only the beginning. Because the Caldarium, the hot room, is next, and you're not ready. You leave the warm, weirdly musical embrace of the tepidarium and follow the path into the Caldarium, the infamous hot room. A thick wall of steam greets you like an aggressive sauna with self-esteem issues. You step inside and instantly regret every decision you've ever made. The heat hits differently here, not just warm. This is the kind of oppressive, ancient heat that clings to your lungs like damp wool. You're sweating already, but now it's like your sweat is sweating. Your ears feel hot, even your teeth feel like they're warming up. That shouldn't be possible. You shuffle forward cautiously. Visibility is almost zero. The air dances in shimmers, and your skin prickles like you're being microwaved. Somewhere ahead, men are murmuring. Water sloshes, a towel falls. You can't tell if it's mist or your own existential dread that's clouding your vision. A man walks past carrying a ladle the size of a cereal bowl. He pours water onto a brazier and the steam erupts like a dragon exhaling. Everyone around him just nods appreciatively. You, on the other hand, are trying not to melt. This is the Roman Caldarium, and it is brutal. Heated by massive furnaces beneath the floor, Prefernia, this room is designed to push your body to the limit. The floor itself is hot to the touch, and you're deeply aware of the fact that you're barefoot. You shuffle heel to toe like a criminal on trial. Historians still argue whether the Caldarium was meant for detoxification or simple sadism. But either way, Romans loved it. They believed the heat purified the body, sweated out toxins, cleansed the soul, or at least made you too tired to complain about politics. The room is grand in that Roman ruin that's still functional sort of way. Domed ceiling, carved cornices, grotesques peering down at you through the steam. The walls drip with condensation. You spot a line of bronze taps and realize these are the ancient hot water valves. They look like snub-nosed gargoyles drooling into stone basins. A tub sits in the center, filled with simmering water, not boiling but close. Several men are soaking in it, looking far too relaxed. One even has a little towel wrapped around his head, like a spa day was invented just for him. You try to sit on the edge of the tub. Big mistake, the stone is hot enough to fry flatbread. You hop back up, yelp under your breath, and pretend that was intentional. Across the room, a man coughs deeply, another sneezes. It echoes off the domes like thunder. You instinctively flinch, suddenly remembering that these baths aren't filtered, or chlorinated, or anything ated. They're warm, ancient soup, full of herbs and people. You ease yourself into the tub, 1 foot at a time. It's too hot. You hiss, then try to play it cool, which is hard when you're visibly poaching. Eventually, you're submerged up to your chest. Your heart thumps in your ears. You blink. The steam wraps around your head like a wet blanket. It's hard to tell if you're relaxing or slowly passing out. The man next to you, a wiry figure with wiry eyebrows, turns and asks something in Latin. You smile and nod, which turns out to mean, yes, I do want to hear your opinion on Cicero's cousin's grain scandal. For the next few minutes, he monologues. You learn nothing except that he can talk for a long time without breathing. Elsewhere in the room, another bather slathers a thick, pungent paste on his arms. It smells like bay leaves and vinegar. You later learn it's a homemade cleanser, olive oil, salt, and sometimes animal urine. Romans were big on ammonia. You begin to wonder if you're still sweating or if your body has given up. Then suddenly, a slave enters with a large bronze bowl and a rag. He moves silently, wiping down benches and checking the fire vents. He looks about 13 and exhausted. You feel vaguely guilty until you remember that you're also dying. A sharp whistle pierces the air. It's not clear who made it or why, but everyone looks toward the sound. Then just as quickly, they return to their soaking, sweating, and silent judging. You close your eyes for a moment. Bad idea. You nearly doze off. The heat is lulling. Your brain slows. Thoughts blur into each other. You start imagining you're a raisin, slowly drying out in a fruit tray of despair. At some point, you become aware of someone poking you. Not rudely, just gently, a tap on the shoulder. You turn, blinking through sweat. The man gestures toward the next room, the cold plunge. You nod, more out of instinct than bravery. Time to leave the human stew and face whatever icy horror the Romans cooked up next. You rise from the bubbling tub like a tragic sea creature. Your limbs are jelly, your knees crack, your skin steams faintly in the air, and you suddenly realize you are now the humidity. You shuffle toward the next doorway, which gapes like the mouth of a dungeon. That's the frigidarium, the cold room, but you don't reach it yet, because blocking your path is a broad-shouldered man with what looks like a clipboard made of wax. He holds up one hand and squints at you. He says a single word, Tessera. Oh no, not again. You attempt to shrug, a helpless expression. A silent plea for mercy. He does not care. A child, a small adult. Either way, they're gone. And so is your towel. Yep, stolen. While you were focused on not dying of heat stroke. Roman bathhouses were infamous for petty theft. Clothes, sandals, even tesserae were prime targets. Inscriptions still survive of angry bathers cursing unknown thieves. One reads, "May whoever stole my cloak never wash again." A real scorcher by ancient standards. You wrap your arms around yourself and keep going. The next room is cooler. Slightly, the steam fades. The light changes. You can see the outlines of columns and benches again. Your lungs, for the first time in 20 minutes, expand without wheezing. But now you smell it. It's not bad exactly, just intense. A cocktail of old oil, damp towels, wet limestone, and something slightly cheesy, like if a gym sock and a basil plant had a baby. This, friend, is the unfiltered scent of the Roman Empire. And it gets worse, because you turn a corner and suddenly you're surrounded. Not by steam, not by heat, but by odor. You've stumbled into the Laconicum, the dry, sweating room, and its peak hour. This room is a low-ceilinged stone chamber, heated dry instead of wet. Less steam, more smoke, and packed. Men sit shoulder to shoulder, sweating in silence. Some chant, one snores softly. You slide onto a bench, immediately regretting it. The smell is thicker than the air. Your own sweat now has competition. The man next to you radiates the energy of someone who eats garlic like candy. Another rubs something on his chest. It smells herbal, maybe mint, maybe disappointment. Historians still argue whether this part of the bathhouse was more for physical purification or some kind of mental discipline. But judging by your current state, it's mostly for learning to suffer politely. You close your eyes and try to focus on your breathing. You inhale, mistake. You cough. A man on your left pats your back, helpful but also slightly sticky. Then you hear the scrape, not the strigil again. A servant, dressed in little more than a belt and sandals, appears carrying a wooden bucket and a set of tools. He begins oiling a patron, casually, methodically, then scraping again. The same oily removal process you endured earlier. You look down at your own glistening limbs and realize it never really ends. The same body oil, pressed from olives grown in Campania or Hispania, gets applied and scraped and wiped in endless cycles. It was a luxury, it was medicine. It was mildly revolting in large doses. Some Roman physicians swore by it, said it prevented disease, protected the skin, even calmed the nerves. Others just liked how it made them shine like polished statues. Your back itches. One accuses the emperor of raising grain taxes. Another counters that the aqueducts haven't collapsed this year, so maybe cool it with the criticism. You meanwhile are trying to remember what fresh air tastes like. A man enters with a small brazier, adds more coals to a pit in the center of the room, and fans it vigorously. The wave of new heat makes your eyelids flutter. You're dangerously close to melting. Suddenly, someone announces a name, loudly, proudly. A man near the door stands. He's summoned for a private treatment, something to do with cupping and goat fat. You don't ask. You take the opportunity to escape. You slide off the bench, wobble slightly, and shuffle toward the exit. The tiles squeak under your feet. You pass under another arch. And there it is, the cold plunge. Not yet. First you need to cool down a bit more, or stop hallucinating, whichever happens first. You're standing at the edge of the frigidarium, toes tingling against the chilled mosaic floor, steam still drifting off your skin like you've barely escaped a kiln. For a brief, desperate second, you consider skipping it. Then a group of elderly Roman men strolls past you and dives into the cold plunge like it's a birthday surprise and not a cryogenic dare. You're not about to get shown up by ancient grandpas. You draw in a breath. The pool looms in front of you, long carved stone edges, shadowy corners, ringed by flickering torches. It looks peaceful, it looks still, but you can feel the cold radiating off it like an unspoken threat. You dip in a toe. Instant regret. This isn't just cold. It's mythically cold. It's my ship just hit an iceberg cold. Your soul cringes in protest. But there's no turning back now. You've endured scraping, scalding, unsolicited oiling. This is the final boss. You step in 1 foot, then the other. The water races up your legs with icy vengeance. Your chest tightens, your skin puckers. Your heart rate jumps from nap mode to earthquake drill. You make a sound, somewhere between a yelp and a squeak. It's not your finest moment. Still, you press forward. The water creeps past your knees, your waist, your ribs. Your body vibrates like an unstrung lyre. Nearby, a man snorts with amusement. He remembers being you. Then you drop, fully submerged. It hits you like an electric slap. Your limbs seize, your ears ring, and for a brief second you forget how to breathe. Then clarity, pure frigid clarity. This must be what the Romans meant by invigorating. You're alert now, more awake than you've been in years. Thoughts settle, your heartbeat booms like a war drum. You're alive, barely. Supposedly, this temperature shock was good for circulation. It balanced the extremes, reset the body. Historians still debate whether this part of the ritual was truly medical, mostly symbolic, or just a public test of who could hide the screaming best. You last about a minute longer than expected. Your body's gone numb, and your pride is the only thing keeping you upright. You haul yourself out dripping, teeth chattering like castanets. Of course, there are no towels. Not since a child-sized bandit ran off with yours hours ago. A passing servant glances at you, unimpressed, and tosses you something that might be a rag. You catch it like a blessing. It's barely big enough to pat down a shoulder, but you pretend it's helpful. And then a scent hits you. It's not steam, it's not oil. It's something else. You follow your nose, not because it's wise, but because it's urgent. The trail leads you down a side corridor and straight into the latrine. Brace yourself. Roman toilets were a group experience. You step into a semicircular room lined with stone benches. Each one has an evenly spaced hole. There are no doors, no privacy. Just you and a collection of strangers, all doing their business in concert, like it's an open mic night for digestive tracts. You freeze. The man next to you nods, utterly unfazed, and greets you cheerfully as if you've just joined a picnic. You nod back, slowly, then sit on cold stone and reevaluate everything. Below the bench runs a water channel. Floating in it, the infamous sponge on a stick. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's communal. You lift it carefully, like it might growl. It's damp, spongy, slightly menacing. This was ancient Rome's version of toilet paper. Washed occasionally, shared generously. You've never felt so betrayed by history. The smell isn't awful, surprisingly. Roman engineering did a decent job with airflow. But acoustics, different story. Every splash echoes. Every grunt reverberates like a temple gong. It's dramatic and deeply humbling. You finish fast. You don't linger. As you exit, your eye catches something scratched into the wall. Ancient graffiti. I hope your hemorrhoids burst, you laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's deeply, painfully real. Back in the corridor, the air feels cleaner. Somehow, impossibly, there's food. You shuffle toward the scent like a half-drowned rat, following the aroma of salvation. Around a bend, tucked in an alcove, there's a small vendor stall. The man behind it is wearing a tunic that's seen too much. He doesn't greet you, just scoops something from a clay pot into a tiny bowl and thrusts it forward. Chickpeas, not spiced. You chew slowly, cautiously. The chickpeas are both overcooked and somehow crunchy. You're not sure how that's even possible. The vendor watches you with narrowed eyes, like he knows exactly how long that food's been sitting out, and he dares you to comment. You don't. Instead, you nod politely and move on, wandering down a quieter corridor lined with flaking frescoes. Painted gods recline among vines, holding bowls and staring at each other with the same smug detachment you've now seen in every Roman face. You pass under a dripping archway and into another chamber. Then you sneeze once, twice, Then it hits you, the slow, awful awareness that your body is turning on you. Your head feels fuzzy, your throat scratchy, your nose suddenly congested. A little cough rattles out of your chest, and somewhere deep in your immune system, a tiny white blood cell starts screaming in Latin. Congratulations. You've caught the mystery flu. You think back to the sponge on a stick, to the man who coughed into the plunge pool, to the child who ran past you after licking a pillar probably, to the dozen barefooted strangers packed into every room, sharing sweat and oil and gossip like it's currency. And now the germs are yours, all yours. Historians still argue whether Roman baths were beneficial for health or just very fancy petri dishes. Sure, they believed in the healing power of hot and cold, and they were advanced, engineering warm floors and flowing water without modern tools. But germ theory wasn't a thing yet. If you got sick, it was probably because you angered a god or had too much wine. Spoiler, you probably got it from touching a sponge. You sit down on a stone bench, shivering despite the lingering heat. The cough returns, it echoes. Across the room, an older man offers you something in a tiny cup. You squint wine. Water? Cough syrup with goat fat? Hard to tell, you decline, and he nods approvingly. Probably thinks you're being stoic. Really, you just don't trust anything in liquid form anymore. You wipe your face with the linen scrap you're still using as a towel. It's damp, smells faintly of garum, the fermented fish sauce Romans used on everything, and provides zero comfort. Someone nearby sneezes loudly. You flinch. At this point, your bathhouse experience has entered what scholars might call the immune system endurance trial phase. Your body, weakened by extreme heat, extreme cold, and emotional trauma, is now playing bacterial roulette. The air feels thicker. You notice a small carved alcove on the far wall. Inside sits a statue of Hygeia, goddess of health, holding a serpent. It's ironic, really. You're sitting in the heart of Roman hygiene, and you've never felt dirtier. You try to stand, but your legs wobble. You sit again, slower this time. A slave walks by carrying a bundle of herbs, bay leaves, mint, rosemary, and throws them onto a nearby brazier. The scent wafts through the air like a makeshift cure. It helps slightly. The man beside you begins humming. You don't recognize the tune, but it's oddly comforting. You let your eyes close for a moment. Just a moment, you wake with a snort. You may have napped or passed out. Either way, you feel colder now. You glance around, still in the same room, still sniffling, still entirely too naked for comfort. You need to move. Sitting still in ancient Rome isn't safe. You don't want to become a cautionary mosaic. You shuffle to your feet and stumble into a side chamber. It's quieter here, lower ceiling. Small private tubs carved into the floor, like forgotten bathtubs for very quiet ghosts. Someone's lying in one, covered in cloth. Two attendants are rubbing something onto his chest. A third is applying a heated coin to his foot. You've wandered into the unofficial clinic. See, Roman baths didn't just serve the clean and carefree. They were also the go-to spot for medical treatments, especially if you couldn't afford a personal physician. Hot water, herbal compresses, bleeding bowls, cupping jars. It all happened here, often feet away from someone trying to enjoy their olive snack. You don't get too close. You don't want whatever that man has, and you're pretty sure you already have something worse. Historians still argue about how effective these bathhouse treatments were. Some say the warm air and communal care helped people recover. Others say most of it was wishful thinking involving too many sharp objects. You exit as quietly as you entered, coughing softly into the back of your hand. The bathhouse isn't killing you exactly. It's just wearing you down. One germy handshake at a time, you shuffle past the frescoes again. One of them shows Neptune rising from the sea, trident raised triumphantly, surrounded by happy dolphins. You feel seen, not in the triumphant way, more like the a fish out of water coughing uncontrollably way. But hey, maybe a nice massage will help. You take a deep breath. You're definitely not ready for that either. You shuffle down another corridor, breathing through your mouth now, not because it's more polite, but because the smell hasn't improved. Somewhere between mildew, vinegar, and cooked armpit, the air clings to you like a bad decision. Instead, you find the latrina's twin, more benches, more holes. More wide-eyed men sitting in perfect formation, having a casual open-air chat while relieving themselves. You nod, they nod. Everyone just pretends this is fine. But this isn't a repeat visit. This is a discovery. There's a central channel of flowing water beneath the seats, moving waste toward the sewer systems. A marvel of Roman engineering, sure. But you're more distracted by the clump of something unidentifiable floating in it. You pretend you didn't see it, you keep moving. Because now you have the answer to that nagging question that's been scratching at the back of your mind since you stepped into this marble-slick nightmare. How did Romans clean themselves after doing their business? Here's your answer, the Tessorium. It waits for you near a low basin, a stick with a sponge. Just there, perched like a soggy sentinel. It's resting in a shared water trough which is flowing, yes, but slowly. Too slowly to reassure you. The sponge is grey, puffy, and honestly kind of smug-looking. This was standard hygiene. You watch another man use it, calmly, efficiently, with all the confidence of a man who's clearly never met a modern toilet. Then he places it back into the water, gently, like returning a sacred relic. You want to scream. But instead, you inhale, bad move, turn on your heel and exit the room like you've just survived a minor war. Outside, you lean against a pillar and rethink every life choice that led to this point. Historians still argue whether everyone used the sponge or whether wealthier Romans had private ones. Some suggest high-ranking individuals brought personal slaves who carried custom cleaning tools. Others say there were rotating sponge washers. None of these options are comforting. You glance down at your hands. You decide not to touch your face for the next week or year. And now, the worst part. You've used the facilities, but there's no soap. Because the Romans didn't really use it. They scraped oil off their bodies. That was considered cleansing. It's oil.scrape. Cold water, and maybe a mint leaf for style. You spot a small fountain and splash some water on your hands. It's cold, very cold. You keep splashing, like maybe quantity can replace quality. A child runs past you again, maybe the same one who stole your towel. You feel a momentary surge of rage, but it's drowned by a second sneeze that turns your brain inside out. You lean on the fountain, breathe slowly. This entire place is a contradiction. Grand columns, marble floors, delicate mosaics, paired with sponge sticks and communal sweating. It's equal parts magnificent and mildly horrifying. You hear the sharp clack of sandals on stone behind you. Someone's approaching, you straighten up, expecting another towel demand or token check. Instead, it's a man holding a small jar and a strange wooden instrument. He smiles in that way Romans do when they're about to offer you something deeply uncomfortable. Temetnos, he says, then gestures to the jar. You blink, he's offering you a tooth powder. That's right. Ancient Romans didn't brush their teeth with paste. They used powders, made from crushed bones, charcoal, and sometimes ashes. The applicator looks like a worn-out paintbrush. You decline politely, and he shrugs before dusting his own teeth with casual pride. That man is brushing with cremated dreams, and he's proud. You nod and keep walking. You pass a pair of men arguing about the cost of garum imports. One insists the Spanish anchovies are inferior. The other threatens to take the conversation to the frigidarium, which apparently is where serious discussions happen now. It hits you then. You're deep into the Bathhouse's social engine. This wasn't just a hygiene station. It was Facebook, therapy, business meeting, gym, lunch spot, and minor surgery center all rolled into one damp corridor. Romans came here daily. They made friends. Enemies, bad financial decisions. Some were even born nearby, because of course the midwives hung out by the hot pools. You pass a wall mosaic depicting men wrestling, oiling each other and lounging. One figure holds a sponge on a stick triumphantly, like a flag. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Then someone sneezes again, loud, wet echoing off the stone. You sigh, you're not just a guest anymore. You're officially part of the microbial ecosystem. And you haven't even hit the massage room yet. You round a bend and nearly smack into a dripping man clutching a lyre. He plucks a single, wildly off-key note and mumbles something reverent about Venus. You nod like that explains everything and move on, your footsteps squelching wetly with each step. At this point, you could probably be wrung out like a dish rag and fill a small basin. But you have no time to ring. Up ahead comes the final boss, social interaction. You step into a domed hall, steeped in golden light and thick with murmurs. The steam is softer here, the chatter sharper. This isn't just a bath, it's the Roman version of a VIP lounge. No togas, lots of glistening shoulders. This is the therme's real purpose. You linger at the edge, taking it all in. A group of seasoned older men reclines on a semicircular bench, flipping through wax tablets and arguing about taxes, grain tariffs, or whatever senators worry about after their third wine cup. You try to eavesdrop, but their Latin flows fast, thick, and aggressively self-important. Not far away, a broad man draped in a towel so fine it practically declares nobility is mid-anecdote, waving his hands like a playwright. Something about a priest slipping on oil and falling headfirst into a charcoal fire. His audience howls with laughter. He beams. You can tell he tells this one often. You find a bench and sit, stone damp. Of course, you try to look like you belong, contemplative, slightly mysterious, as though you too have deep thoughts about bathhouse politics. Then a woman passes, graceful, veiled, flanked by two servants like a minor goddess on a stroll. Wait, weren't these places gender segregated? Well, sort of. Sometimes when convenient. Turns out Roman bathhouses had flexible policies. Some allowed mixed bathing during certain hours. Others had divided wings. Some cities banned it entirely and then unbanned it weeks later. Historians still argue whether mixed bathing was widely accepted or wildly scandalous. Either way, you're suddenly very aware of your posture and your lack of a plan. You try not to stare. You also try not to think about the communal toilets just 2 hallways back. A deep thump beside you makes you jump. Someone sat down, you glance and immediately regret it. The man is enormous. His tunic is soaked and clinging like it owes him money. His entire aura radiates friendly overshare. "Salve," he says, grinning. You squeak out a salve in return. First time, he asks. You think about bluffing, but your damp deer in headlights look betrays you. He nods sagely, like a bathhouse shaman, and launches into an enthusiastic tutorial about sandal theft prevention. Apparently, you're supposed to tie your sandals together and stash them behind the 3rd statue of Apollo by the North Arch. You nod like this is the wisdom you came for, not something you'll forget by the time you're halfway back to your locker. As he chats, a servant glides through the chamber with a tray of tiny clay cups. He offers one. You accept it hesitantly. The liquid is deep red. You sip, it's wine, but not your average dinner party wine. It's warm, it's viscous. And is that pepper? Romans had bold palates. Their wine was often spiced with honey, cinnamon, seawater, herbs, or anything lying around that wouldn't immediately kill them. You stifle a cough and swallow the fire. "Strong, yes?" the man beside you asks, clearly pleased. You nod. A tear leaks from one eye. Around you, conversations rise and fall like waves. A man rants about his divorce scrolls. Another hums and recites a tragic ode to his neighbor's donkey. A mother is calmly explaining, again, that you can't drop pebbles into water ducts. You've walked into a half-naked family reunion with extra humidity. You lean back, trying to observe without engaging. It's nearly impossible in a place where the concept of personal space has been absolutely steam blasted out of existence. The air now carries the scent of herbs, body heat, and ambition. Then it dawns on you, this isn't about getting clean. This is the Roman stage. This is visibility, performance, whispered alliances and lingering side-eyes. The bath isn't the background, it is the message. In one corner, a tight knot of bathers is deep in whispered debate. Something about a senator's wife, a visiting musician, and possibly a goat. You catch someone say, "I told her it was Brutus, not a lion." Snickers ripple through the steam. Then someone nearby mutters, "They pulled another curse tablet from the drain." Now that gets your attention. Romans used to toss lead curse tablets, defixions, into the plumbing. Little slabs scrawled with personalized hexes, petty, pointed, powerful. Stuff like, "May Marcus slip on soap and lose his robe forever," Or let Claudia's olive oil go rancid. Efficient vengeance, eco-friendly too. Beside you, your chatty companion is still going strong. You nod along, hoping he doesn't ask questions. The heat swells. The buzz in the chamber begins to mellow. Some conversations trail off. Others drift lazily toward topics you hope not to hear. You're not quite dry. You're definitely not relaxed. But somehow, you're fitting in, sort of. Eventually, the energy in the room settles. Someone yawns. Another lies back with a satisfied sigh. You sit still, sweating quietly. One guy is dozing on a bench, mouth open, toes twitching. You realize you've been here too long. Your cough returns. You sip the last of your spiced wine and set the cup aside. You rise slowly, your back cracking like aged pottery. The man nods farewell. "Vale," he says. "Vale," you croak back. You step out of the social room, stomach gurgling faintly from the chickpeas and wine, and body aching from more sitting than soaking. You survived the bathhouse small talk. Barely. You wander back into the corridor, dazed and dripping. You can still hear the echoes of the gossip chamber behind you. Someone laughing about a senator's new wig, someone else starting a deeply passionate argument about olives. You are officially overstimulated. You take a turn, hoping to find a quiet corner, and instead find something else. A man is lying on a marble slab, pale and glistening, while another man hovers over him with a small bronze knife and a bowl. Around them, 3 other bathers watch with mild interest, as if this is just another Tuesday. Welcome to the unofficial clinic again, this time front row seats. You take a cautious step closer. The man on the slab winces as the blade presses lightly into his arm. A thin stream of blood trickles down. The bowl fills slowly. No one panics. You panic a little. You're witnessing bloodletting. The Romans believed that bad health was caused by an imbalance in bodily fluids. Humors, they called them. Blood, bile, phlegm, and black bile. Too much of one, get rid of some. And this poor guy, judging by the dramatic sweating and shaky limbs, must have had way too much blood. Historians still argue whether bloodletting did anything useful, or if it just gave sick people a new problem to focus on. But the Romans embraced it like it was essential, especially in the bathhouse, where your pores were wide open and your brain was too steamed to argue. You take a step back, suddenly hyper-aware of your own limbs. No one's coming toward you with a knife, but you wrap your arms around yourself anyway, just in case. The man being treated groans. The attendant calmly reaches into a clay jar and pulls out a leech. You're out. You turn and flee gently but urgently down the hallway, your bare feet slapping wetly against the tiles. A pair of young men glance at you and smirk as if to say, "Newbie." You take a hard left into the next room. The lighting shifts. The ceiling rises again, and soft blue frescoes stretch overhead. Painted dolphins, sea nymphs, a very muscular Poseidon with a perfectly curled beard. It's calmer here, and then your stomach growls. Because, of course, after everything, your body wants food again. It just so happens the next room holds another snack stall, tucked between 2 columns. This one has figs, barley cakes, and something wrapped in a wilted lettuce leaf. You don't ask. You accept a barley cake from the vendor. He looks like he hasn't smiled in 15 years, and nibble cautiously. It's dry, like chewing a handful of warm sand mixed with old oatmeal. But it's food, and your stomach seems grateful, so you keep going. A servant walks past, carrying a bowl of something steaming. You follow your nose. Behind a curtain, there's a series of small rooms, private stalls possibly, or mini steam chambers. One has a couple of people sitting together, passing a jug back and forth and whispering. Another has someone snoring loudly. And then, just past them, something strange. A small altar. You step closer. A tiny statue of Asclepius, god of healing, sits surrounded by withered herbs and burnt offerings. A ring of candle stubs flickers around it. Let my cough pass swiftly. You consider adding your own prayer. Something like, "Please let me survive the next hour." You shuffle away and nearly run into a pair of women arguing over a jar of scented oil. One insists it came from Alexandria. The other claims it smells like donkey sweat. You quietly side with Alexandria. It's more polite. And then, without warning, your nose starts bleeding. Not a dramatic gush, just a slow, steady trickle. Probably from the heat, or the cold, or the excitement, or your soul finally trying to escape. You pinch your nose and find a corner to sit in. A slave approaches and offers a cloth. You accept with a grateful grunt. He also offers a shallow bowl of vinegar water. You stare at it, then swish it around your mouth. It burns, you're now clean and crying. After a few minutes, the bleeding stops. You mop up your face, nod at the slave, and stagger back toward the main corridor. You've bled less than the guy on the marble slab, so that's something. You spot a couple lounging near a window, drinking watered-down wine, and playing a game that looks like tic-tac-toe, if invented by mathematicians. They don't look up, and then someone sneezes. Again, it's beginning to feel personal. You pass a low bench where someone is sketching. He's drawing the bathhouse from memory, adding little flourishes, like a toad billowing in the wind or a squirrel sitting on a column. You want to ask, why the squirrel? But you're afraid of the answer. You keep moving, because somewhere in this maze of sweat and herbs and mystery diseases, there's a massage waiting for you. And that might actually break you. You hobble forward, barefoot aching and absolutely defeated. Your dignity evaporated somewhere between the oiling and the sponge. Your back throbs, your head spins. Your cough sounds like it belongs to a retired senator with a pipe habit. You're coated in layers of dried oil, moisture, mystery lint, and something that might be animal-related. And then you see it, a quiet alcove. Warm dim. The scent hits first. Cloves, old wool, and something vaguely roasted. You shuffle inside. Welcome to the Roman massage chamber. Front and center is a stone slab, the table naturally, and flanking it are two men who look like they were carved from beef. They're wearing scraps of fabric that qualify as loincloths, only in the most charitable light. One of them is chewing something, loudly. He stares straight at you, with the blank expression of a man who's already seen too much. You hesitate, too late. One of them gestures. You're up. You climb onto the stone, like a condemned man ascending the gallows. In your head, you imagine gentle kneading, soft whispers, and maybe a whiff of lavender. What you get is bodywork via combat training. The first push into your shoulder blades is less massage and more retraining your skeleton. It feels like he's trying to hammer you flat. Your breath catches, you grunt. He grunts back. Friendly, threatening, no idea. Then he really gets to work. Elbows, knuckles, and at one point, you swear he used his forehead. Your entire back is steamrolled. You flinch, he smiles. This isn't therapy, it's re-engineering. You're being recalibrated like a faulty siege engine. Historians still argue over whether Roman massages were for health or for show. Some records claim they balanced humors and restored the body. Others suggest they were a status symbol, renting a masseur for your dinner party to show how luxuriously you could suffer. Either way, this one's trying to erase your entire spine. He douses your back with warm oil. It cascades like lava. Then out comes a scraping tool. Not quite a strigil, more like its angry older cousin. He drags it across your skin with alarming precision. You yelp. He clicks his tongue at you like you're being unreasonable. You try to focus on the ambient scents. Cinnamon, myrrh, maybe toasted resin. It's oddly comforting until he attacks your calves. If your back was a battlefield, your legs are the smoldering aftermath. And wronger, you gasp something unintelligible that might technically qualify as Latin. He pauses, nods, and resumes. Across the room, another soul lies motionless on a neighboring table, eyes open and haunted. Your gazes meet. You exchange the silent bond of people who've both just been remade against their will. Then come the slaps, yes, slaps. Firm, unapologetic thwacks across your back and thighs like he's waking up bread dough. Your skin tingles, your organs duck for cover. You think one of your kidneys relocates. He lifts your arm and rolls it like he's cranking a winch. Gladius shoulder, he mutters, whatever that means. Something pops. You see brief flashes of your childhood. And then, nothing, you think you black out. When you return to the waking world, you're on your back. How did you get flipped? No idea. But now, there's oil trickling into your belly button, and above you is a ceiling mosaic of Mars, driving a chariot pulled by birds that look alarmingly furious. It's artistic. It's also terrifying. The masseur leans into your field of vision. He lifts an eyebrow. More. You shake your head with all the force you can muster. He grins. He continues. He grabs your foot, begins to apply deep pressure in ways that feel strangely judgmental, like your arches are being held personally responsible for your life decisions. You twitch. He tightens his grip. Time loses all meaning. The session could be 15 minutes or 5 hours. You no longer know. Finally, he steps away, nods once. Then, as if sealing the ritual, slaps your shin with his massive palm. You slide off the slab, somehow still upright. Barefoot, slippery. Spiritually hollow, you bow. Don't ask why, reflex maybe. You shuffle out sideways, limbs loose, brain fogged. You feel like a piece of overripe fruit, glossy, bruised. Uncertain, every muscle in your body hums. Your left eye is twitching without your permission. But hey, you survived technically. Breathe. Cough. The sound bounces off stone like a sickly horn. A man strolls past and pats your back in solidarity. You scream internally and then you hear it. A voice. Sharp, angry. Echoing, you've accidentally wandered into the women's section, and you are very much not supposed to be here. You freeze mid-limp. One foot slick with leftover oil, the other poised to cross a line the universe clearly marked, do not cross. And across that line she waits, an older Roman woman, hair pulled tight into stern coils, eyes like ice picks, an expression that could curdle wine. She locks eyes with you. She does not blink, she is not pleased. And neither are the 6 or 7 equally furious women behind her, who until your arrival were enjoying a blissfully serene soak. Clay masks cucumber slices. Peace all gone now. The cucumbers have flown, there's shouting. A sandal is raised and it is aimed. You retreat fast. Your heel finds a puddle. You skid, arms flail. You nearly crash into a wall mosaic of Venus, who, yes, is smirking. You spin out of there, soaked, steaming, and mortified beyond description. Turns out, Roman bathhouses didn't have a single simple rule about gender separation. Some had totally separate wings. Others alternated men and women by hour or day. And in certain places, everyone mixed until someone complained. Which, let's be honest, someone always did. Historians still argue whether gender rules in Roman baths were practical enforcement, moral panic, or political theater. You don't care. All you know is you've now offended a battalion of exfoliated Roman women, and there's no undoing that. You dive behind a nearby statue of Hercules to hide. It's damp, you're damp. Hercules, carved in eternal muscle-flexing glory, looks uncomfortable on your behalf. Eventually, the shouting fades. You slink back into the corridor, trying to arrange your face into the look of someone who totally meant to be there. A bath attendant walks by. He gives you a look. Not quite disapproving, but definitely amused. You inhale, regroup. And that's when you hear it, a low, even tone. Someone speaking with deliberate rhythm from a nearby room. You follow it. Inside, a man in a pristine toga, bone dry, impossibly clean, is pacing in slow circles while delivering what sounds like a formal address. 3 others sit nearby, nodding, taking turns asking questions. You're witnessing a meeting, an actual Roman business meeting, at a bathhouse, next door to the massage dungeon you only just escaped. This, it turns out, was entirely normal. Roman bathhouses weren't just for cleaning off and catching up. They were hubs. Real business happened here. Legal arrangements, dowry negotiations, grain contracts, and sometimes a good old-fashioned backroom curse exchange. Nothing greased the wheels of commerce like being half naked and covered in olive oil. One man pulls out a wax tablet and scribbles something with a stylus. Another claps him on the back with a laugh that sounds like money. Something was just agreed upon, but you'll never know what. You linger a little too long. One of them notices. Negotium, he asks. You blink, smile politely, shake your head, and cough, just to make sure your harmlessness is obvious. They nod. You retreat. You wander again. The corridors begin to blur. Warm stone, cool tile, whispering voices. The occasional burst of laughter or argument echoing down the hall. Your sense of direction has fully left the building. And honestly, you've stopped caring. You're no longer a visitor. You're more like a damp, drifting ghost of this place. You pass another wall mosaic. This one depicts Apollo radiating golden beams, surrounded by dolphins, cherubs, and yep, one very confident cherub relieving himself into a pot. You squint, decide not to ask questions. A servant passes with a tray. Dried fruit, you take one and chew. It's chewy, vaguely sweet, definitely questionable. Somewhere in its past, it was a fig. Now it mostly tastes like humidity and surrender. Then you hear it, the sound of life. Voices, dozens of them. The familiar buzz of the main chamber. You follow the hum and step back into the heart of the thermae. Somehow, it's even more crowded than before. Steam hangs like a curtain. The crowd surges with idle purpose. A man wrapped in a bright orange towel waves at you enthusiastically. You don't know him. You wave back anyway. That's who you are now. You spot a young scribe perched on a stool, sketching a group of bathers in quick, practiced lines. You glance down, one of the portraits. Definitely you, puffy-eyed, hair-frizzed, expression lost in existential confusion. You ask if he's capturing your good side. He shrugs. There is no good side today. Your legs start to tremble, not from fear this time, but from sheer unfiltered exhaustion. You've reached the saturation point, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You search for a bench, there are none. You settle for perching on the paw of a decorative lion statue. It's damp, it's cold. It's probably against the rules. No one stops you. You sit. You watch. Veteran bathers glide by with practiced ease. Newcomers stumble in, wide-eyed, clearly doomed. One poor man fumbles his tessera. It slips from his hand and plops dramatically into the plunge pool. A few people applaud. Somewhere deep in the building, a bell rings. You never learn what it means. But slowly, bathers start drifting toward the exit. Maybe it's time. You've survived the sweating, the scraping, the slapping, the social whirlpool. You've been lost, found, scolded, massaged, and mildly cursed. You're still standing, mostly, and what can only be described as a spinal earthquake, performed by an over-enthusiastic man with biceps for eyebrows. You're not clean, but you're bathed. And apparently, that's good enough. You rise from your lion statue perch with all the grace of a damp newborn deer. Your joints crack like ancient roof tiles. Your spine issues a formal protest. But you wobble upright, feet squishing against still wet stone, and begin the long, unheroic shuffle toward what you hope is the exit. Except you stop, because there, right in front of you, is the floor. Not just any floor, this one is beautiful. The tiles under your feet stretch into an intricate mosaic, swirls of cobalt, gold and black, forming the shape of a mythological beast. A sea monster, enormous, teeth like daggers, tentacles where tentacles shouldn't be. It's emerging from stylized waves, mouth wide, jaws about to snap shut on a group of tiny, panicked bathers. You blink, those bathers look eerily familiar. One is holding a sponge, another a strigil. One is trying to climb up a dolphin that seems as concerned as you are. And dead center, there's a little carved figure, arms up, mouth open, clearly mid-scream. It looks exactly like you. You're not superstitious. But you do take a step back just in case. This is what the Romans considered tasteful bathhouse decoration. Mosaics weren't just pretty, they were stories. Warnings, aesthetic flexes. This one seems to scream, "Welcome to the bathhouse. Abandon hope, ye who forgot your towel." Historians still argue whether such floor mosaics were meant to entertain, impress, or quietly terrorize. Some depict gods and feasts. Others show battles, acrobats, or entirely too many mythological animals doing things with humans that we simply don't have time to unpack tonight. But the sea monster, this one feels personal. You press on. Past the mosaic into another corridor, quieter now. Dimmer, the air is cooler. It might even be fresh, though at this point your sense of smell has retired. And then, suddenly, laughter, but not the cheerful kind. This is laughter laced with menace. The kind that comes from someone who knows what's about to happen to you. You step into a new chamber and find him, the Monsieur again. No, not your Monsieur. His cousin, probably, or his spiritual twin. Another broad-shouldered, towel-wielding mountain of a man who greets you with a nod and a cracked knuckle stretch. You freeze, he gestures. You flinch, but then someone else steps forward, a younger bather. He's smiling, confident. He volunteers, lies down on the slab, and you stay to watch. Why? Because you've developed a kind of grim curiosity now, like someone watching a storm roll in, or a goat about to be launched from a catapult. This isn't a massage this time. It's something more experimental. The attendant brings out what looks like a wooden paddle with copper studs. You lean closer. He starts tapping the volunteer's back, rhythmic soft at first, then harder, like drumming on a meaty bongo. The volunteer giggles. You are horrified, but also a little impressed. Then comes the scraping again, this time with a double-headed strigil. One side wide, the other narrow, precision scraping. You watch tiny flecks of oil, sweat, and what might be last week's regrets peel off the poor man's shoulder like old paint. And then, the finale. The attendant uncorks a jar of something that immediately stings your nose. It smells like mustard, garlic, and possibly punishment. He slathers it onto the man's back and begins beating it in with open-palmed slaps. You take a quiet step back and wonder if this counts as a religious ritual or just a very enthusiastic skincare routine. The bather gets up afterward, glowing. Not metaphorically, actually shiny. He thanks the attendant, tips him with a coin that might have come from under someone else's sandal. Then he winks at you as he leaves. You don't wink back. You head for the next doorway. This one leads into a smaller chamber, quiet and dim. You sit on a stone ledge just to catch your breath, just for a minute. A servant walks by, sprinkles powdered charcoal into a basin, and lights it. The room fills with a faint gray haze. It smells like pine needles and something metallic. You breathe it in anyway, because honestly, it's the nicest thing you've smelled in hours. Your mind drifts to the sea monster mosaic, to the sponge, to the man being beaten with garlic paste. You pause mid-step, one foot still glossy from oil, the other hovering near a doorway that radiates bad timing. That persistent cough from the frigidarium rattles up again, sharp and scratchy, like a souvenir you never asked for. You laugh softly, maybe you're amused, maybe you're just out of strength. Either way, it escapes you before you can stop it. Then you hear it, off-key and unmistakably theatrical. You follow the sound and find a man under a domed alcove, wrapped proudly in 2 towels, reciting something from Virgil with all the flair of a stage actor and none of the rhythm. He might be quoting, he might be improvising. Whatever it is, he means every word. You offer a thumbs up. He bows with dramatic flourish. You smile and turn away, only to spot something embedded in the wall. Tucked between 2 bricks and partly hidden beneath the haze of years is a small lead sheet, dulled and weathered. A curse tablet. You lean in. The words are still visible, scratched in uneven Latin. May the one who took my sandals step on every sharp pebble in Rome. You stop. You nod slowly, feeling seen by an ancient stranger, because you too are barefoot, and Rome's floors are unforgiving. With renewed sympathy and sore arches, you carry on, united in spirit with sandal-less sufferers through time. Round the next bend, a sound stops you in your tracks. A heavy thump, sharp and final. You've entered what can only be described as the Roman massage arena. Rows of stone slabs, each occupied by a half-dozing figure. Attendants circle like a well-drilled team, stretching arms, pressing backs, rotating limbs with practiced intensity. One appears to be walking carefully across a bather's spine. Another is humming as he smooths oil in even strokes. You consider retreating too late. An eager masseur steps up, grinning and gesturing toward a table like he's offering you a seat at a feast. He's short, broad, and clearly enthusiastic. You climb on, slowly. You've come this far. At first it's gentle, warm oil along the spine, a palm pressing down between your shoulders. You think this might be all right, then clap. Your shoulder blades are tapped with rhythmic force. Not painful, not soothing either. You flinch slightly. The masseur hums, pleased. He continues, using a carved tool that glides and scrapes, coaxing tension from muscles you didn't know existed. He calls it releasing energy. You call it mystifying. Then he begins patting your legs in rhythm. Not hard, just firm, like preparing dough. Your mind floats somewhere between curiosity and confusion. Nearby, another bather is being massaged with rose petals and fragrant oils. He looks blissful. You feel like a particularly stubborn lump of clay. Historians still discuss whether Roman massage was medical, luxurious, or a bit of both. Some sources describe healing techniques and soothing balms. Others hint at more dramatic demonstrations meant to impress onlookers. Yours, definitely on the dramatic end. The masseur moves onto your legs. At one point, he gently lifts your arm and rotates your shoulder with surprising precision. Something clicks, you blink. He smiles, then, to your surprise, he moves to your face. With a soft cloth and a bronze spoon-like tool, he smooths your cheekbones in small, practiced motions. The sensation is strange, but not unpleasant. His focus is total. And then, just when you think it's done, he gives your nose a light tap. You sneeze loudly. He nods, satisfied, and hands you a towel, herbal-scented, slightly damp, and the closest thing you've felt to kindness all day. You shuffle off the table, glistening and bewildered. Then finally you find it. A small, warm chamber lit by oil lamps. Cushions line low benches. A gentle fountain bubbles nearby. Painted gods recline on the walls, gazing into eternity with relaxed disinterest. You've reached the sudatorium, the Roman recovery lounge. You collapse onto a cushion with the grace of a dropped amphora. Around you, bathers doze in various states of peaceful ruin. One hums softly. Another gently waves a palm frond over their own face. A third is nibbling dried fruit with their eyes half closed. A servant appears, offering you a fig wrapped in a mint leaf. You accept it instinctively. It's sweet, cool, quietly miraculous. And then, from across the room, a loud slap. You sit up, startled. Someone's dropped a sandal. You stare, then exhale. You're too tired to care. You lie back again, letting the sound drift away like steam. A blurry image rises in your mind of that sea monster mosaic, the sponge, the plunge pool, the sandals lost to fate. You're not the same person who walked in. You're much, much more moisturized. You shuffle onward through another hallway, clinging to the hope that your bathhouse journey is nearing its end. But Rome has one final curveball waiting. You step into the next room, and a sharp voice slices through the steamy air. Out, you freeze, you're unsure what you've done wrong. You're rapt, you're quiet. You even gave a respectful farewell to that very fragrant gentleman in the last chamber. But as your vision adjusts, you realize the issue. This room is full of women. And you, my friend, are not supposed to be here. A few glance your way, more curious than alarmed. One lifts a brow, another hides a smile. But the stern matron approaching you, she is absolutely not smiling. She's striding over like a force of civic order wrapped in linen. You don't wait to find out what happens next. You retreat, murmuring apologies in half-remembered Latin and maybe some ancient Greek for good measure. You backpedal through the steam, narrowly avoiding a mosaic column that seems to mock you with its smirking satyr face. Finally, you press yourself against a cool wall and exhale. Roman bathhouse customs around gender? Complicated. Some days were divided by hour, others by room. Sometimes regulations were enforced, sometimes they weren't. Emperors like Hadrian even tried to prohibit co-ed bathing, only to watch the public do as they pleased anyway. Scholars still debate whether it was about public decency, social order, or just trying to keep the bath lines shorter. All you know is you've now been redirected by both sides of the bathhouse in a single day. Impressive, really? You make your way down what you assume must be the exit path. But the servant is already back to polishing an antique lamp that hasn't worked since Caligula was in sandals. So now you're stuck. You backtrack until you find a narrow corridor, plain, dim, clearly less trafficked. Fewer murals, fewer polished tiles. You're in what feels like the employee wing, or maybe a path reserved for servants. You keep walking. You pass a locked storeroom, a forgotten amphora, and a mural that looks like the artist gave up halfway. A boy naps beside a stack of towels. You consider taking one, you don't. He looks like he's had a long day too. Eventually, the hallway opens into a small chamber lit with soft candlelight. Only one person is inside, a refined figure reclined on a padded couch, sipping from a shallow cup and quietly reading a scroll. You pause, this feels exclusive, too exclusive. As you begin to back out, someone bumps into you. A servant, holding a tablet and wearing a very unimpressed expression. "Name?" he asks flatly. You hesitate, offer your best attempt at sounding like someone with an invitation. He checks the list, frowns. "You're not expected." "Story of my day," you reply. "You'll need to leave." "I'm trying," you assure him. He sighs and points down a side corridor, left ramp. You nod and shuffle off, trying to look invisible. Behind you, the man on the couch chuckles softly. You pretend not to hear it. Finally, the passage opens into a familiar space, an arched threshold carved with symbols, laurel leaves, water jugs, the unmistakable curve of a strigil, and a phrase etched in clear Latin: "All who leave here are reborn." You pause. You do not feel reborn. You feel like you've been boiled, buffed, seasoned, and very nearly reshelved. But you pass beneath the arch anyway. Outside, the world greets you with a breath of real air, dry, dusty, honest. You smell the streets, the clay rooftops, the sun on stone, and you breathe deeply, fully, for the first time all day. It doesn't taste like rebirth. It tastes like survival. The moment your feet touch the sun-warmed stones outside, something shifts. It's not the temperature, not the air. It's your entire body going, "Finally." You've made it, sort of. You're still barefoot. You're still vaguely greasy. Your towel, or what's left of it, clings to your hips like a wet napkin with abandonment issues. But technically, you are no longer in the bathhouse. And that feels like a small miracle. You step into a shaded walkway, lined with olive trees and carved benches. This is the palestra, the open-air courtyard attached to the bath complex. A place for stretching, sunbathing, and the occasional amateur wrestling match between overly confident senators. It's also where people pretend to be very busy after their bath, so they don't have to go back to work. You find a low bench and collapse onto it with the grace of a wounded turtle. Your back sighs, your legs go slack. Your left foot twitches once, then gives up. You glance around. Other bathers recline nearby, some chatting lazily, others sipping wine, one man reading a scroll upside down and pretending he isn't. Across the courtyard, a tall figure in a brilliantly white toga strides into view. His hair is oiled, his sandals gleam. His nose is alarmingly straight. You can tell from the way people glance up, this is someone important. You try to look inconspicuous, but it's hard when your skin still glows with a layer of communal olive oil, and your eyes say, "I just saw a man beaten with reeds for relaxation." The man stops near you, turns, and speaks. "You there, do you invest in grain?" You blink. He doesn't wait. He launches into a pitch about Gallic harvest routes, Alexandria port taxes, and the relative cost of wheat versus barley in the provinces. You nod at all the wrong times. He doesn't care. You are now a captive audience. This is it, the final trial. You're being pitched a business deal, mid-barefoot, mid-trauma, mid-sunstroke, because Roman bathhouses weren't just about bathing. They were about business. If you wanted to be taken seriously in Roman society, you didn't make deals in the forum. You made them here, slippery and half-dressed, while pretending you weren't still bleeding internally from the cold plunge. Historians still argue whether these bathhouse business meetings were symbolic or substantive. But contracts were drafted, partnerships were formed. Gossip was currency, and everyone had a price. You try to follow the pitch, you really do. But your mind keeps drifting to the sponge, and the fig, and the man with the curse tablet, and the sea monster that looked a little too much like your reflection. Eventually the man frowns. "Are you listening?" You snap upright. "Yes, Barley." He raises one eyebrow, close enough. Then just as suddenly he smiles, claps you on the shoulder, "Ow," and walks off, probably to find someone less concussed. You sag in place. A servant walks by and offers you a handful of grapes. You accept. You eat them one at a time, slowly, as though savoring the final meal before re-entering the real world. Nearby, a pair of boys are play-fighting with wooden sticks. One smacks the other in the face. The injured party falls dramatically and moans like a wounded legionnaire. His friend laughs. A woman yells something about cleaning up before dinner. You feel something close to peace. But then your foot tingles. You look down. You forgot your sandals. Still barefoot. You groan, stand. Shuffle back toward the entrance of the bathhouse, hoping your belongings might still be in the cubby where you left them. If they aren't, you'll be going home with a towel and a story. Inside the apoditerium, the changing room, things have quieted down. Fewer people now, less shouting, more yawning. The air smells like drying plaster and defeat. You approach your cubby, it's empty. Of course it is. No tunic, no sandals, not even the cursed fig you tucked into the corner as a snack. You're staring at a rectangle of nothing, and then a miracle. From behind a nearby pillar, a slave boy appears, holding your tunic. It's wrinkled, slightly damp, and smells like it spent a few hours near a vat of garum, but it's yours. He hands it to you with the solemn expression of someone who's seen too much. You whisper thank you like he just saved your life. He disappears. You slip into the tunic, adjust the clingy fabric, and feel some vague echo of modesty returning. No sandals, though. They're gone. Possibly cursed. Possibly being worn by that same child who stole your towel 4 hours ago and is now living a life of crime and adventure across the Tiber. You don't care anymore. You're dressed. You're standing. You're upright. You survived. And as you step out into the Roman sunlight, still blinking, still slightly damp, you realize something odd. You don't feel clean, not exactly. You feel baptized by heat, by cold, by oil, by chaos, and by every other poor soul who stepped into that bathhouse, thinking they were just there for a rinse. You shuffle down the stone-paved street, your lone surviving tunic clinging to your damp skin, your shoulders glistening faintly in the Roman sunlight. Your feet slap the stones with soft, fleshy squelches, each step a reminder that you've lost your sandals somewhere between the sponge and the senator. But something's different now. Your joints are loose. Your limbs float slightly, as though gravity isn't quite sure what to do with you anymore. You've been steamed, scraped, slapped, and steeped like a particularly overhandled tea bag. And the world, it feels weirdly bright. Too bright. You shade your eyes with one hand, still sticky with remnants of massage oil and what may or may not be mystery fig. As you round a corner, a stray dog sniffs your foot and recoils. Even it knows you've been places. You pass a vendor yelling about dried fish. The scent nearly drops you. You cough again, that same familiar cough. It's grown into something now, a persistent tickle with the rhythm of a slow drumbeat in your chest. You're probably harboring 3 ancient illnesses by this point. Congratulations, you're a walking Roman archive. And still barefoot, you look down. The road is hot, too hot. The midday sun has turned the stone underfoot into a skillet, and your soles are sizzling like sacrificial sausages. You hiss, you hop. You find yourself doing an awkward, stuttering dance down the street. Skip, hop, hop, hiss. A man lounging in a doorway watches you with mild amusement. Forgot your soli, he calls out. You nod. He gestures to the soles of his feet, thick, calloused, crusty. You'll get there, he says, smiling like someone who's walked barefoot across continents. You're not comforted. You dart to a shaded patch near a crumbling statue of Minerva. Her eyes seem to say, this is why sandals were invented. You nod respectfully and take a moment to breathe, crouched like a lizard, avoiding death by pavement. Historians still argue whether Roman streets were well-kept or borderline punishing. Depends on the district, the season, the emperor, and whether someone had sacrificed enough goats that week. What you know is this: without sandals, it's a slow, painful journey to any sense of dignity. You move along the shaded edge of the buildings now, hugging walls like a sneaky, overcooked shrimp. A child runs by wearing, of course, your sandals. You're almost sure they're too big for him. He claps when he spots you and disappears into a crowd. You sigh. Across the square, a public fountain burbles lazily. You make your way to it and dip your feet into the shallow basin. Cool relief shoots up your spine. You may never move again. You may just live here now. The pigeons eye you with suspicion. Other bathhouse survivors trickle past, glowing, red-cheeked, half-dazed. One woman fans herself with a broken palm leaf. A man sneezes so loudly that a goat brays in protest. The streets are full of people who've also just endured the Roman definition of clean. Everyone's glistening, no one's smiling. You think about that sea monster mosaic again, the way it reached up through the waves to devour a bather with tiny arms raised. A warning, a prophecy, an incredibly accurate depiction of your day. You watch the water in the fountain swirl. A coin glints at the bottom. You toss in a pebble, close enough, and make a wish. Let me find a pair of shoes and never, ever be scraped by another oiled stranger again. A voice beside you says, hard day. It's a vendor, elderly, wrinkled like a sun-dried fig. He's pushing a cart with sandals of every shape and color. You could weep. You almost do. How much? You ask, pointing at a humble pair made from worn leather straps and a wooden sole. He eyes you. You've been to the thermae? You nod slowly. So very slowly, he gives you a discount. You slip them on. They're rough but heavenly. Your feet make a grateful squeak. You offer the vendor a smile of pure devotion and walk away, feeling like Caesar himself. The world seems gentler now. You're dryish, you're shod. You're upright, you're still coughing, but that's a battle for another day. Right now you're content, but then you hear it, laughter. Familiar, too familiar? You glance up and see him, the man who scraped your spine like a fishmonger, filleting a trout. He's walking with two friends, gesturing animatedly. He sees you, he waves. You freeze. He yells something about strong muscles now, and winks. You nod politely and turn into the nearest alley. Not today, Striggleman. Not today. You walk faster. Past food stalls, past musicians, past a small gathering of men debating who invented poetry. Spoiler, none of them know. You dodge a runaway chicken, step around a sleeping cat, and find yourself miraculously at the edge of your neighborhood. Familiar walls, familiar smells. The comforting aroma of burnt bread and neighbors arguing about bean prices. Home. You reach your doorway, lean on the frame and look back once more. Toward the bathhouse. In the distance, steam curls from its rooftops. Bells chime faintly. Somewhere inside, another poor soul is being herded into the caldarium without warning. You whisper good luck to them, then step inside and close the door behind you. You close the door gently, like if you make too much noise, the bathhouse might somehow follow you home. Inside, the dim stillness wraps around you like a familiar tunic. The clay walls, the lopsided table, the pile of laundry that's probably been judging you for 3 days. It all feels sacred now. No steam, no shouting. You are alone. You're also very, very cold. The breeze coming through the open window catches the oil still clinging to your arms, your neck, your everything. And suddenly you're shivering like a shaved goat in winter. Because you made one crucial mistake. You forgot the frigidarium, the cold plunge. The final ritual, the Roman full stop at the end of a very slippery sentence. That's where you seal the bath, where the blood vessels contract, the body resets, the pores snap shut like disciplined legionnaires. And now your pores are wide open, inviting but vulnerable. You stare at your reflection in a polished bronze platter and realize you look like a half-boiled sausage with commitment issues. For a moment you consider going back. Just a quick plunge in. You grab a small amphora of stored well water and step onto the balcony. The sky is turning from gold to lavender. The second, Arctic. You yelp loudly. Your neighbor's cat hisses at you and bolts. A man down the street mutters something about lunatics in the Bath district. You don't care. You're focused. Determined, you pour another amphora over your head. You are now officially frigidarized. You dry off with what might have once been a blanket. It smells like last week's lentils. It'll do. You wring out your hair, then wrap yourself in a fresh tunic. Dry, soft, blessedly unstolen. You collapse onto your cot, bones sighing, muscles melting. And then it hits you. You made it. You did the whole thing. The Roman bathhouse survived barefoot, yes. Possibly infected also, yes. Emotionally scarred by what the strigil did to your armpits, definitely. But you went in. You endured, you emerged. Kind of like a gladiator, except wetter. Historians still argue whether the bathhouses were truly egalitarian or if they just looked that way. Slaves, citizens, senators all used them. But did they really share the same space? Or were there invisible lines drawn in the steam? You don't have the answer. You just know that today, in that vast cathedral of heat and humanity, everyone was equally ridiculous. You stare up at the cracked ceiling above your bed. There's a spider in the corner, silently spinning a web. You nod at it. The spider nods back. You're both survivors now. Your stomach growls, but you're too tired to move. You consider nibbling on the mystery fig you left by the door, but it's gone. Fine, let him have it. You hope he gets a mild stomachache. Outside, the city rumbles. Distant hooves, clanging bells. Someone arguing with a goat about property lines. Rome, as always, continues on, loud, crowded, glorious. You curl onto your side and pull the scratchy blanket up to your chin. Your skin still smells faintly of herbs and humiliation. But beneath that is something else. Pride. You face the worst of ancient hygiene, and somehow you're still here. Sure, you'll need a week to recover. A new pair of sandals. Possibly a priest, but you did it. You whisper to no one in particular, never again, and immediately cough, because of course. The bathhouse always leaves a little parting gift. You close your eyes. Just before sleep takes you, your brain conjures the image of the sea monster mosaic one last time. It grins, you grin back. Because it didn't get you, not today. The next morning, you wake up to the sound of a chicken screaming. It's not unusual. Chickens scream often in Rome, but this one feels personal. Maybe because your joints ache like you've been tackled by a marble statue. Maybe because your back is still imprinted with the memory of a man who thought relaxation meant slapping you repeatedly with a broom-sized branch. You sit up. Regret greets you like an old friend. Your hair feels like salted hay. Your nose is still running. You sneeze and something ancient rattles in your lungs. You stare at your feet. They look peeled, as if the bathhouse floor tried to claim a souvenir. You swing your legs over the side of the cot and take your first shaky step. A wince, then another. Walking is a negotiation now. Your muscles have unionized. Outside, sunlight streams through the narrow alleyways, bouncing off whitewashed walls and carts full of garlic. Someone's shouting about spoiled olives. Someone else is playing the panpipes badly. You push open your door and step out onto the street, and immediately remember you still don't have sandals. Your toes curl against the warm, dusty stones. But today it doesn't sting, not yet. The ground is just warm, not searing. You're becoming one with the city's texture, still barefoot, still surviving. You head toward the market, hoping to bribe someone for breakfast with a story instead of money. You still don't know where your coin pouch went. Possibly the bathhouse ate it, possibly the sponge. As you round the corner past a bakery, someone calls out, "You're the bather," you freeze. A young man jogs towards you, grinning. He's holding something in his hand. It's your towel, your original towel, but gloriously, unmistakably yours. Found it in the vomitorium, he says casually, like that's normal. You take it reverently. Thank you. No sandals, though, he adds. They're probably in the latrine of the lost by now. You nod solemnly. The latrine of the lost, a sacred mythical place where Rome's forgotten clothing goes to die, probably guarded by an angry sponge spirit. He gives you a sympathetic pat on the back. You going again today? You blink. To the baths? He laughs. Of course, I go every day. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You mentally list your reasons. The steam that cooked your lungs, the toddler who stole your towel and your pride, the man who scraped your spine with what looked like a bronze shoehorn, the everything. But the young man is already jogging away, barefoot and carefree, waving back at you like the bathhouse is a picnic and not an elaborate form of controlled suffering. You look down at your feet. They're filthy again, dust-covered. Gritty, you smile. Because somehow that's less terrifying than being cleaned the Roman way. You sit there on the marble steps, sun on your shoulders, fig seeds stuck in your teeth, towel clutched like a war medal. Romans pass you by, some in crisp tunics, others in robes that look like they've survived 3 conquests and a minor plague. They don't give you a second glance. You blend in now. You're no longer the wide-eyed outsider being herded through steam clouds and oil slicks. You're just another citizen who's survived the thermi and lived to grumble about it. A group of bathers passes in the other direction. Towels slung over shoulders, strigils tucked into belts, sandals squeaking with every step. One of them is limping slightly. Another already has that dazed expression you know too well. the "I've just been scraped and complimented at the same time" face. They're walking into it, the full Roman experience. You nod in silent solidarity. Then you spot him, the towel thief. Same cheeky grin, same tunic 2 sizes too big, same sandals, your sandals. He's weaving between carts and crates, holding a pastry and looking far too pleased with himself for someone under the age of 10. You think about yelling, then you think about how long it took you to stop smelling like burnt basil and stranger sweat. You let him go. Maybe the sandals were never really yours to keep. You head down the steps and start making your way through the midday crowd. Street performers juggle wooden apples while stray cats lurk near market stalls, hoping for fish guts. The city is alive, loud, and always half laughing at your expense. You pause beside a vendor selling perfumes and bath oils. He waves a sprig of lavender under your nose. "Scent for strength?" he asks. You consider it, but what scent could possibly erase the memory of being slapped with warm olive oil while someone called you tense like a senator's mistress? You wave him off politely and continue walking. Soon, the street opens up into a wide plaza. In its center is a circular fountain, shallow and ornate. Carved dolphins spit water from their mouths, and small boys splash each other while pretending to be tritons. You sit on the edge of the fountain and watch as a very proud man tries to dry his feet on what is clearly a tax document. And that's when you notice the man next to you. Middle-aged, serious brow, scroll in lap, sandals pristine. He glances your way. "You look like you've been through it," he says. You glance down at your feet, they're crusty. Figs are stuck to your tunic. Your hair might still be steaming. "I bathed," you say. He raises an eyebrow, the way only Romans can. "Oh," he says, "that kind of day." You nod, he chuckles. "I lost a toenail once in the caldarium. Still went back the next week," you wince. "It's always the third visit," he continues, unprompted. "That's when you stop fearing the sponge," you shudder. "I'm not ready. No one ever is." He pats your back with the confidence of a man who's accepted his place in the bathhouse hierarchy. You watch him go, sandals tapping neatly down the marble path. You sit a moment longer, letting the cool mist from the fountain tickle your face. Behind you, you hear shouting. Someone's arguing at the bathhouse entrance. Something about being denied entry. Something about a lost tessera. The man is furious, the doorman is firm. You smile because that was you. Just yesterday or an hour ago or 3 lifetimes earlier, you stand up. You've done your time in the underworld of steam and social expectations. You've endured the rituals, the ridicule, and the rogue children. You've tasted the chickpeas. You've sneezed in the frigidarium. You've been exfoliated by men with names like Felix and Brutus who don't believe in mercy. And now you just want a nap. You begin your walk home. The sun is lower now, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets. The sound of flute music follows you, thin and unsure. You wave to the vendor who gave you the pity fig. He waves back like he knows exactly what kind of bathhouse odyssey you've survived. You turn the final corner to your street. There by your door sits a pair of sandals. Not your original ones, but clean, worn in honest. A gift, a joke, a neighbor with excellent timing. You slip them on, they fit. Barefoot no more. You step into your doorway, exhale deeply, and let your shoulders fall. You made it, you who faced the sponge and lived. You who entered the bathhouse and came out transformed, not cleaner necessarily, but wiser, softer, slightly saltier. And somehow, that feels like a victory. You close the door behind you, and this time it stays closed. The last sliver of Roman sunlight slips across the floor before the shade draws it back. You lean against the wood, your forehead resting on it, letting the silence settle in. Outside, the city hums on, but in here, it's quiet, still, dry. You've never appreciated dry so much in your life. You kick off the newly acquired sandals and cross the room slowly, letting your soles brush over familiar floors. Each step feels heavier, softer, like the city has finally released its grip on your shoulders. The cot welcomes you with its lumpy embrace. You don't care, it's yours. Maybe they even like the sponge. Historians still argue whether the bathhouse was Rome's great equalizer or just another theater for showing off. But you don't need scrolls or arguments. You were there, you were steamed and scraped, sneezed on and slathered. You braved the politics of naked conversation, the slow horror of shared toilet tools, the sheer audacity of the massage gauntlet. And through all of it, somehow you survived. You made it out with your lungs mostly intact, your dignity partially preserved, and at least one functioning sandal. That's more than most can say. You close your eyes, the air cools slowly. The blanket scratches against your knees. You don't mind. Outside, the city begins to dim. One torch, one gossiping voice, one dusty clatter at a time. You think of the mosaic sea monster, jaws wide, eyes sharp. You beat it. You didn't get dragged into the myth. You turn onto your side, exhale long and low, and smile the slow smile of someone who's earned their sleep. When down begins, so now, let your breath slow. Let your body forget how tight your calves got from hopping across that overheated marble floor. Let your shoulders ease, no longer braced for a slap or a scraping. Let the steam fade, the oil lift, the noise slip quietly into memory. The bathhouse is behind you. The sponge is far, far away. There are no more tesserae to fumble, no doorman to question your sandals, no mustachioed masseurs asking if you'd like just a bit more pressure. Just soft air, just fading light, just the distant hush of Rome tucking itself in. Let your muscles untangle, let the cough settle. Let the towel thief be someone else's problem now. You're safe, you're dry, and you are done. No more bathhouse for today, maybe ever. Let your breathing find its rhythm, easy and quiet, like waves brushing the edge of that ridiculous sea monster mural. Waves that never reach the shore. Let your eyelids fall heavy as sandstone. You've survived ancient hygiene. That's enough for one night. Sleep now. You've earned it.